In this video, we're just going to look at actually bringing in some reference into Maya to start modeling. So there's a couple of ways to do this. Let me just show you the sort of way that we can do it within Maya. A lot of automatic steps on this, and I'll show you a different way that, to be honest, there's a few more steps, but I prefer. Let's kind of show you the wrong way to do it first. So in my perspective viewport, for example, if I just go into the viewport menu and view, down here we have this image plane and I have import image, and we can also bring a move in as well. So if you're doing animation, if you're actually rotoscoping something or doing some bits and bobs, you could bring a move in, an image sequence in. This example, I'm just going to bring a static reference in. I've already set up my project, so I'm just going to go to my reference. And let's just open this file in. So, obviously, when I'm rotating my perspective around, this is completely wrong. This is something we don't want. So to do it properly, I'm just delete this, highlight and delete it. What I'm going to do is go into my 4-panel layout, just press space. I'm going to go to, say, my front view. And in here, I'm going to do the same thing. So view, image plane, import image. Let's go to my reference. Okay, and there, now that works. Okay, if I go into my other view, just press F to zoom in on that, there I've got my actual reference. If you have another reference, so if you're doing a head or something else, or you had a side view of this, you can also go into the side view, do the same. Go to view, where are we, image plane, import image, the same one in. And there you can see we have both of those things in. Now we can actually select these. So if I want to move these around, I can do. Maybe move this back if we're modeling around this center line, which I always do. You want to give this a bit of space, depending on what you're modeling. With something like a sword, you don't need to give it much space. If you're modeling a vehicle, you may want to move this back even more, just to give you that space in there. Okay, we can always just grab these and move these up. Okay, what we can do is we can actually, I'm going to go to the attribute editor. If you want to fade these out, we can do this as well. We have an alpha gain here, so I can make these semi-transparent. Exactly the same with the other one. Can do the same with both. Yep. And one of the things we want to do when we're working with any method of bringing image planes in is log these. So I can grab these both in the channel box. I'm just going to go to layers. I'm going to create a layer from selected. Just call this reference. Just save this. And then we can just lock that down by setting this to a reference. And I'm not able to move these anymore until I click off of this. And then we can select these again. So that's one method. You can change the values of this in terms of the size and everything else within the attribute editor. We can change the positions of this, all of the different things we need to be able to do. So that's one way to do it. And that's fine. I'd say it cuts off a couple of steps of the other method. Excuse me. The one thing I don't like about this is, although we can snap this to grids, sometimes I like to have a bit more control over these, be able to snap them around as well to each other. So I can't, for example, line these up perfectly, which if I'm feeling a bit anal about this, I sometimes want to do. So I'm going to do this another way. I'm just going to delete these. Okay. I'm going to use let me just Control Z this as well. Another thing about this is we can't actually get rid of the back face. So if I'm moving around and I've got a couple of image planes, so say I'm modeling this and move around this side, this will be now in front of my model. So if I wanted to go around and look around my model, I can't do that. I have to turn down the opacity or hide this if I've got this in a layer. Easy enough to do. But if I go in and try to do something like a back face cull, it doesn't work. Doesn't take that side off. So let's look at another method. So I'm going to grab these, delete these. What I'm going to do instead is just create a plane. With this, I can do this in any view, because actually I can just rotate this round. So I'm just going to go into the channel box. I'm going to go into the inputs for this. I'm going to grab this. I can actually just create a plane as well, to be honest. I'm just going to size this up, although I'm going to change the size anyway. So this would be, let's say this was my front view. Just J to angle snap. Bring that around 90 degrees. So that would be that. I'm just going to go into this now, and I'm going to bring an image on. So right click. I'm going to add a new material. Just going to add on this a Lambert. So you can see this is a few more steps. So I'm just going to go into the Lambert. Let's just call this reference. Going to click the input node for the color. Just go into file. And then I can just go in and do the same thing. I can go and get my image plane. And let's press F6 to bring in our texture. So you can see it's the wrong aspect ratio. So I just need to set these to a certain size. So let's click on this. Let's go into the channel box, inputs. And we need to resize this. So we need to find the size. There's a couple of ways to do this. What I'm just going to do is just go into my, just find this a second, and I'll bring it back onto the screen. Bear with me. Okay, so here I have my image. I'm just going to go in, right click on this. Properties, details. Just keep this open for a second. So here I have my width and my height of this, 800 by 1661. Just for the sake of this being absolutely huge, I don't want it sort of 8 meters by 160 odd meters. I'm just going to bring this down. I would scale this or bring this down to scale afterwards, but more importantly, in this instance, I want to keep it the right aspect ratio. So I'm just going to change this. I'm going to do kind of a tenth of this. I'm going to do 80 by 166.1. So just type these in, 80, 166.1. I could have done it the full things, but just, okay, get there. So I've got the same kind of thing. A couple more steps, but I have that in. So what I can do with this now, if I want to get this just set up a bit more, I'm going to change the pivot point to the bottom. So just press D, hold D down to get the pivot active, V, the middle mouse on the y-axis. That's going to bring the pivot point down to the bottom. I'm going to X, and so press X down, which is our snap to grid, and we have our snap to verts up there as well. X, and it's going to move this up again. Middle mouse dragging just on the y-axis, and then I can just move this back again, just where it needs to be. Okay. So if I was doing this for another view. So if I did have another side view of this, I can get this. I can just do a Control D to duplicate. I'm going to angle snap that round. Do it the other way. Is that too much? Let's just set that to 90. I can just get the pivot point. I'm going to set it down to this corner now. And then just using V, I can just snap this into here. So I just to be able to organize this a little easier, just have a bit more control over the placement of these things. That's all it is really. I can also go in and change the material properties. So if we wanted to, I can go in and change the transparency of this, same as before. If I had a different image on this, then I'd have to change that material as well. So if I was bringing a new image on this, I would have to right click and add another new material onto there. But obviously I won't for this example, but we could do. Then I mean I could brighten this up as well. I can bring up the ambient color, so we can do some things with the materials themselves. And then I would do exactly the same step. I grab these and go into my channel box, go into my layers. Let's create a layer from selected. exactly the same. And here, I'll give it a different name, so let's call it reference. Oops, I could spell. Reference sword. And then lock that out. Reference set. So exactly the same step really with that as with the image planes. As I say, this is a couple more steps, but it just gives me that extra bit of control over the image planes themselves. And it's easy enough to get the size of the image to get the aspect ratio. So whichever way you want to use really. As I said before, one of the reasons I like to do this is because it's a plane, I can do a back face cull. Unless and now when I move around it, I can see all sides around my object that I'm modeling, which I just prefer to have. Okay. So that's just a quick look at creating, bringing reference into Maya, just in two different ways. So with the image plane, just on the view image plane, don't forget you need to be in the right viewport. And we can do this just with just a plain object or a poly object, and just with a few more steps, bringing a texture on, we can bring in a reference that way as well. And that's that.